What do we want? When do we want it? Now! Cry the demonstrators, thousands of them on the streets, some of them dressed up, some dancing perhaps. There is music, there are drums, there are cries. Such is the demonstration that we've become used to in Western culture as campaigns for change take root. And they might take different forms at different times and different places. In times past, there may have been, for example, in the UK, massive petitions right around the country. We've seen tragedies as well. The woman who was trampled to death on the racecourse in front of the public. Brave and courageous people trying to make their statement for the thing that they were concerned about. And what makes a successful campaign? We could list a whole load of things in the last couple of 100 years. In the UK, it might look a bit like this. The abolition of the slave trade, everybody getting the vote, the rise of feminism, our current concerns for inclusion, diversity, trade unionism, all these things. Successful campaigns. And at the heart of them, I believe, is something we don't consider enough. It's the shared imagination of the society. Because what makes a successful campaign in the end is not just the campaigners and the decision makers locking horns. It is the mood of the general public and how they view that campaign. Politicians, for example, are very sensitive to the public mood. More sensitive than sometimes we give them credit for. And it means that the key, I believe, to successful campaigning is the shared imagination in the society. And so we have, at the centre of all those campaigns, one value, the value of human life. Think about it. Every one of those campaigns is effectively saying, people matter. Everyone matters. No one should be left out. The valuing of human life. And where does that come from? How have we got this shared imagination that is truly widespread, isn't it, through Western culture? Tom Holland argues that it comes from the Christian faith. Thousands of years ago now, that stories like the Good Samaritan or the appeal to love one another were important, an important root of a growing concern that would eventually reach out to all types of people everywhere. More recently, the Enlightenment philosophers, some of them anti-religious, held on to this idea that human life was important. People like Tom Paine, rabidly against the government and the religion of his day, taught us about human rights. And that's the language we use now. But we had others like John Locke, we had Immanuel Kant, philosophers who tried to think about society from first principles. But they likewise focused on the value of the human being. And that gave us this, I argue, over hundreds, if not thousands of years, a sense of the value of all human life. That's important to the success of these campaigns, which we rightly celebrate in our society. I mean, after all, we believe that any society today should have human rights, or any good society. That's because we've come to share this value, this essential value at the core, the taproot of Western culture. And where does that leave our environmental concerns? What is at the centre of them? So let's think about them. We've got biodiversity loss, climate change, deforestation, a whole list of things. And we're doing exactly the same thing as we've always done. We're taking on vested interests. We're turning out on the streets. We're trying to to argue, amass facts, impress upon it, confront power, all the things that have been done before, but something isn't working. Somehow it's terribly frustrating. The protesters are getting more and more frustrated, taking more and more extreme action, and that alienates the public. So where do we go? What's going on? I will argue that, yes, okay, we're doing our campaigns very well, but at the heart of it, something is missing. It is our shared imagination about our relationship with the earth. I believe we have to come to respect the earth. That might sound strange to our ears. After all, we've been brought up with the idea that humans were sort of a bit above nature, that nature was something which we used for our ends. And yet, perhaps, the thing we've got to learn is not only that human lives are valuable, but also that the earth itself is valuable and immensely powerful, and that we need to come to respect it. We're beginning to respect the earth in some parts of the world as we experience extreme climate events, wildfires in 2023 around the world, in Greece and Canada and America. Wow, floods. Extreme weather events are going to increase, become more common. And that will teach us to respect the earth in some way. But better than that, it would be good if we could learn to respect the earth before we suffered terrible tragedies. So the question I believe we need to ask today is, how do you create values at the heart of a society? And particularly, how do we create a respect for the earth? And it is the lack of that respect that is the reason that campaigns around the environmental crisis are currently failing. Now, that's a different perspective from the one you normally hear, and it does suggest a different approach. In the next series, in the next video in this series, I'll be looking at human nature in a bit more detail, and how the way that we've thought about ourselves has changed through history and it's been challenged by science. And I will suggest that we are living in the third deep challenge to our view about ourselves today, and it's the most severe challenge we've ever experienced, and it is vital that we respond. So that's next time. Please subscribe if you'd like to. If you'd like to think some more about shared imagination in the ebook Imagination is the Key to Unlock the Environmental Crisis, I talk a little bit more about how we created shared imagination, for example, in creating the health service, or how, in a negative sense, shared imagination is created by Trump and his cohorts in the States for nefarious purposes currently. So that's the future. Look forward to seeing you soon.